One. Yo, what's going on, people? What's going on? What's going on? Welcome back to another edition to Let Me Shoot My Shot podcast. I'm your host, Griff. Just want to say what's up. We're going to talk about a nice little topic this evening. While shooting your shot, we're going to talk about pain points and remedies while shooting your shot. You know, how to recognize them as well as remedies to overcome them. So, let's get right into it. What's going on, everybody? Like I said, welcome to Let Me Shoot My Shot podcast. I'm your host, Griff. And we're going to talk about pain points and remedies while shooting your shot in this world that we call success, rather. Let me put it that way. A lot of times when we start new endeavors in life, jobs, changing careers, entrepreneurship, or even extending or going beyond, outside of what we normally do, we always we always run into obstacles, whether it be obstacles that we can avoid or our own obstacles that we create. And the number one obstacle that we create is the fear of failure. Because whenever you start something, you don't want to fail at what you're doing. Who wants to fail? Nobody wants to fail. Nobody wants to fail at doing anything. So, of course, we, in turn, we put that, it's always a small doubt that we put in the back of our minds, or, oh, what if it don't work out? In the beginning, sometimes, a lot of times, it starts to work out real good. And then what happens is we hit a glitch. So worrying about not succeeding in a new endeavor, that is like prime number one, one of the prime number one pain points that we face when we are starting something new. Okay. That's, you say, well, how do you avoid that? Well, me personally, I don't think it's something that's avoidable because it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody. Whether it's a small business or a big business, nobody wants to fail when they start anything. Nobody wants to fail. So you stick to it and you stick at it, because the only way to overcome that is to continue to drive on, to continue to do what you do, or whatever it is that you're looking to do to be successful in. So the remedy for that is to emphasize small and manageable steps to reduce the fear of failure. So what that means is, instead of trying to tackle everything all at once, what you want to do is create little small manageable steps. Say I'm going to achieve, for instance, I'm always going to reference photography because I'm a photographer. So I'm always going to reference that. And while I'm talking or trying to relate things on the podcast, is I'm always going to reference photography. So small manageable steps is practicing. That's a small manageable step. Whatever it is in photography is practicing. It could be networking in what you're doing. It could be basically advertising. Now, advertising doesn't have to be real big. It doesn't, because you're your own advertiser. You know, get a T-shirt made, get a shirt made, business cards. But when it comes to business cards, because I use business cards as well, you have to be selective when giving out your business card. People are like, well, selective, yeah. Business cards cost money. So with that being said, because things cost money, you want to be selective. You want to make sure that when you hand out that card, you're handing out that card to somebody that is truly either A, in need of your business, or B, is going to want your business in the future. So being selective, I mean, you can get 1,000, 2,000 business cards or however they come and go out there and hand them out. But if you just hand them, yeah, you talking to somebody, well, here's my card. Just giving them your card doesn't mean that they're going to call you. So just emphasizing small, manageable steps to reduce the fear of failure. Now, what are those steps? Depending on your business or depending on what you're trying to do, small, manageable steps, even when you're changing a career. What that could be. It could be all about waking up every day and mapping out a game plan for the day, or writing down the things that you want to accomplish for that day. It doesn't necessarily have to, be anything big, but you want to start small. And then once you start small and you start seeing these things progress and move and it starts to snowball, then you'll be able to be like, you'll start feeling a little bit better about, how you're moving forward. So that's one of the, that's number one. Another pain point that kind of ties into number one is uncertainty, not knowing where to start or how to proceed. Those one and two kind of go hand in hand, because you can have two and end up reverting back to one and having a fear of failure. So you got to be careful though. Like I said, one or two kind of goes hand in hand. And how you combat that is you'll offer clear, actionable advice to combat uncertainty. So doing research, knowing how to proceed, knowing what you need to proceed. That could come in the form of, i.e., being equipment, or even seeking outside counsel or talking to somebody that's already in the business that you're doing. All of these things help you progress to the next level. So you got to be willing to be open and be mindful that if you want to continue to shoot your shot and continue to, move forward, you know, you have to be open to advice from others, in order for these things to happen. So um, like I said, in most of the stuff that I do, as far as photography, I have to relate. I either call somebody, because networking is a big key to making sure that points one and two don't happen. Because if you can feed off of somebody else's energy, it helps, because they can kind of help you through some of the growing pains, or they can kind of help you guide you through not making certain mistakes, to where uncertainty kicks in and worrying kicks in and not succeeding starts to, because, I don't mind. You start, oh, I don't know. And so kind of, you know, network, which is a really big thing, which I believe helps out to prevent pain points one and two. So, let's always keep that in mind. Number three is huge in my point, because if you're an entrepreneur, we always we look for support as an entrepreneur. So number three, a pain point, lack of support, feeling alone or without encouragement from others. So I say this all the time, when you're starting your business, whether it's t-shirts, photography, videography, um, there's certain entrepreneur journeys that you got to remember. Your best customer is the one that you don't know, the one that you never met. That's your best customer. Family should be the last customer that you technically should look towards for support, because number one, they're your family. So you need to keep in mind, not to say family's not going to support you, but you want to make sure that you're reaching out to people that want or need your service. Okay? Now, when you put this in perspective to, let's say, changing careers, you will kind of hopefully, somebody along the lines in that field to where you can have some support. Now, the remedy for that is to build a community of listeners, well, in podcasting, well, build a community to share experiences, to support each other. Once again, networking. Because once you do that, you're able to build a foundation to where you have somebody to look to or to turn to, not necessarily say, hey, give me the answer, but this is what I've been struggling with. And hopefully the person that you reach out to will be able to help you, or at least guide you, keep you on track. So you gotta remember, lack of support is a pain point, but you need to build a community of support, networkers to share experiences and to support each other. Because just like you want somebody to support your business, you should be able to support somebody else's business. Not necessarily financially, but support them, emotionally as they're going through. Because you never know. You may be high and they may be low, and vice versa. So you kind of feed off of one another. So those, that's a good key point to build off of, in order to make sure that you stay focused. Okay, because in my book, failure is not an option, but we do know that is there. And the fear of failure is what puts a lot of us on pause. We'll be put on pause in a heartbeat because it ain't turning out like we envisioned it. Because whenever we start something, whether it be a business, podcast, or stream, we think of it in a successful way. And a lot of times when it doesn't catch the traction, how we think about it in our head, then uncertainty kicks in, doubt kicks in. Now we feeling alone. That's that lack of support again. And then our motivation and our drive decreases. And guess what? We slowly drift away from doing what we started or doing something that we really enjoy. So that brings to pain point number 4, which is the imposter syndrome. doubting one's own ability and feeling unworthy. Just what I just spoke about. Because when it goes left from what we think about it, we start doubting ourselves. Can I really do it? Is it going to really last? Because in our head, we probably seen so many other people doing something similar. And, it's one thing about this internet with a lot of influencers, whether it be streamers or whatever the case may be. A lot of this stuff came about since COVID, and we never really saw the dark days of anybody. We never saw the dark days or the struggles. All of a sudden, we started seeing people and they live in these nights, they showing where they live at, they showing how they traveling and how they eating, what they wearing. All we saw was the end game. We didn't see the struggle. We didn't see none of that. We just saw what they wanted us to see. Oh, they doing that, and look how they making so much money. And yeah, but could you pick up and start doing what they were doing and instantly get, sponsors and people to pay you? We never saw the growing pains, which comes to the remedy, sharing the stories of overcoming self-doubt to address that imposter syndrome. So you have to look at like, okay, it's going to be some growing pains in anything that you start. It's going to be tough times. It's going to be, man, you're going to be up late depending on what it is that you're doing. A new position may even, you may have to do some reports, or you may have to do something a little different that you were never used to. But in the long run, if you stay the course, especially if it's something, that has to do with being influential, as far as being on social media, even if it's selling clothes. If you, a designer, whether you're doing T-shirts or designing clothes or sneakers or whatever the case may be, it all doesn't take off overnight. And yeah, you're gonna have that time where it's gonna be booming and then it's gonna go slow. And when it's booming, it's great because you're on that high and you feeling everything, all the goodness is coming out. But then when it go low and it slow down, and it will, it may not slow down for some people all the way. Some people, it may seem like it's coming to a screeching halt. Like I said, I referenced myself, photography. There's been times in the beginning, on the go. Then all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt. I'm barely doing any work. I'm barely shooting. I'm putting out advertisements for photo shoots, because for most photographers, it slows down as it starts to get cold. People are no longer outside. If you don't have a studio, you got to rent a studio that's passing on, extra an extra fee to the client to cover the studio space. Because now you worrying that if you charge a little bit more, now they're not going to want to book because now they got to pay so much. When somebody else may be charging a little less, they may have a studio, they may have a membership at the studio or something, who knows? So you have to take all of those things into account. But share your story, share your drive, be authentic to who you are. It doesn't have to be perfect in order for it to happen, because people want to see you. They want to see the real you. They want to see the real person behind everything. They want to know, like, okay, yeah, this is how it went down. This is what it took. Was he eating ramen? Did his phone get shut off? Was he bouncing around using Wi-Fi? we never know. With a lot of these people who have made it, we don't know the backstory. All we know is what we see. We just saw the finish line. So let's keep that, you know, in our heads and in our minds as you proceed to continue to do and chase that dream and shoot that shot at what you're chasing or what you're accomplishing. Of course, pain point number 5 is almost up there with number 1, and that's financial concerns. Worries about the cost or financial risk of new ventures. Depending on what it is, to start a new business takes money, whether it be inventory, equipment, marketing, and marketing entails of business cards, anything that you're using to reach out and touch buyers or people that you want to attract to your brand. And a lot of people stall out right there. Now, their business grants, you can take out small business loans. It all depends on what it is. If you want to start a restaurant, because each avenue for what you're trying to do is different. Now, this financial concern probably won't come into play if you're in a new position. If anything, it's a blessing because you probably, hopefully, you got some more money, behind it. So, but you want to stay focused. Work with what you have. And like I said, I always reference back to photography. Most people think that you need the latest gear to shoot or have this. And yeah, there's some things that are needed. But investing in yourself comes with time. So in order to do that, you have to sit down and plan out budgeting tips and financial plannings to alleviate some of these concerns. Like, okay, I understand that most people are becoming entrepreneurs and they still have a job. Well, most people's income, if they're working full time and doing some sort of entrepreneurship, their full time income feeds their whatever they're doing as an entrepreneur. Now, how much you pour into that goes back to the remedy, the budgeting tips, and the financial planning. You see what I'm saying? If you know as a person you're doing t-shirts and whether it be silk press or vinyl press for t-shirts, then you know what you need. Whatever kind of press that you need, there's several different kinds out there. You can do the individual one, the one that you can buy 2 at a time. You can buy one that you can do 4 at a time. So it just all depends. But budgeting and financial planning, is a key. Always work up, save up in order to get the next piece of equipment that you need. So that way you're not struggling and stressing yourself. You know, um, you talk about there's a lot of stuff that go into like, what you want to do to get paid. People don't carry cash anymore. I understand Zelle and Cash App is a big thing, but sometimes, as you become a merchant, especially if you're selling clothes, t-shirts, hats, or anything like that, you want somewhere, you got Square and Clove, and yeah, they take a percentage, but you got to know how to balance the percentage. So if they take tax, then you got to make sure that when you set your pricing, you set your pricing with tax. So that way, once they pay you, and you get the full profit for what you need because the tax has already been paid for for what the company that you're going to use, i.e. Square or Clove, is going to tax you on. It's the same thing if you use your Cash App as a business, they tax you on that. So let's, got to kind of balance those things out and make sure you plan accordingly. Work with what you have. Don't overextend, because then you put your business in the hole. Don't want to do that. So, with all those things, coming into play, that's just a clear way to kind of help yourself plan, a little bit better to be able to succeed. Now, out of all 5 of those pain points, you got those 5 remedies. You got to know when to apply them, how to apply them. I can't tell you how, because each business and each person that shoots their shot for what they're doing is different. It's totally different than how I shot my shot for photography, how I shot my shot for doing podcasting. It's the same thing for people, these young kids who are streaming. You gotta have a good PC. You gotta have a good webcam. It's a whole bunch of stuff that ties into this stuff. But you have to know what you need to get in order to sustain your business. Shooting your shot for your business as an entrepreneur. I know what it takes for me. It ain't easy some days. I got software, subscriptions, and a whole bunch of other stuff that on a day-to-day, or not day-to-day, but monthly basis, things got to come out. I want to continue to edit. I want to continue to make sure I have all the available options, on certain programs. So I got to make sure that I'm able to, have these subscriptions renewed, so that way when it comes time for me to edit programs or, use a certain program in order to make sure that I can use certain music in a video that I'm doing, that I can. And those are going to be the things that you will have to plan out and know for yourself, specifically for your business or your endeavor as you move forward. I can always say, hey, this is this. And this is how it worked out for me. So let me know what you guys think. If I missed out anything, or if there's something else that I need to touch on, let me know in the comments. Shoot me an email, shoot me a DM. Let me shoot my _shot on Instagram, or drop me a little comment on this video on the YouTube, and let me know anything that I missed, on this topic of shooting your shot, so that way we can get a better understanding. Each one teach one. Are there any other pain points or remedies that are out there, that could be discussed, as far as, embarking into entrepreneurship, shooting your shot, shoot it. You might miss the first time, but eventually the ball gonna go in the basket. So I just want to say I appreciate y'all tonight, man. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, listening to this podcast. I got a couple great more episodes with some guests that's gonna be on the show. That they shot in several different areas, whether it be sports, whether it be comedy. You just never know, man. With me, I'm willing to ask anybody anything in order to learn a little bit more and know a little bit more. So once again, I'm your host, Griff. Thank you for joining this episode of Let Me Shoot My Shot. Peace.